Hi, it's me, Daphne. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I like to talk about books, lifestyle, vlogs, hair, and product reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in November. If you enjoy, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already. So let's get started. So in November, I read 9 books, and all of them happened to be romance this time around. Out of those 9 romances, 3 were contemporary, 2 were fantasy, 2 were historical, and 2 were sci-fi smut. And then the star ratings I gave out this month, 2 were 3 stars and 7 were 4 stars, which is really good. The first book I read in November was a historical romance by Lisa Kleypas. This is the first book in the Wallflower series. It's called Secrets of the Summer Night, where these 4 women kind of make a pact to try to help each other find a good husband in like historical England times. You know how it was. This book is pretty well beloved online in the book community. A lot of the romance YouTubers I watch really love it, so I wanted to give it a try. I own 2 out of the 4 in the series, and I've read 3 so far. So this first book is about Annabelle and Simon. So Annabelle is from a family with like a good name, but for whatever reason, she's a little bit outcasted, so she's having a hard time finding a husband within the realm. Like, she really wants a titled husband. And Simon is not titled, but he's very rich. He works very hard. Like, he's in the industrial business where things are really blowing up with technology and stuff in England. And he is obsessed with her. Like, he is just madly in love with her, doesn't really realize that he just kind of wants her as his mistress, and he's trying to seduce her and win her over when she's just like, nah, I need a husband with a title. And it's their romance. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It was really fun in the beginning. There was a lot of tension. I really liked that Simon was really into her, but I felt like after 70%, it really went into hyperdrive and skipped too much of them getting to know each other once they kind of both accepted this new relationship they were building. So I found that a little disappointing, but it's still a fun ride. I would say personally, Lisa Kleypas isn't my favorite historical romance author. Her steam is okay, and her plots sometimes are distracting and like not that interesting, but she builds good relationships for the most part. It's kind of a hit or miss for me. So I'm still trying her out, but I'm slowing down my interest with her because sometimes I feel like the romance takes too much of a backseat. Not in this particular book. The romance is definitely the focus in this book, but some other ones I've read have not been. The next book I read was The Love Hypothesis. Everybody knows this book. This is a contemporary romance about these 2 people in STEM. Our main heroine, her name was Olive, and she's like a PhD student and a professor in the program named Adam. It's a fake dating story between the 2 of them. He's not like her teacher or anything, so it's not like super taboo, and they make sure they go through all the correct things to like be in a relationship, even though they know it's fake dating. But like, you already know that he really likes her and she's starting to fall in love with him, and it's their love story, and it was really sweet and a fun time. There is talk about sexual misconduct. Has nothing to do with the main male character's actions, but people around our heroine, Olive, being very inappropriate, so just heads up for that. The steam in this was really good, which was surprising towards the end because it was a bit rom-com-y in the beginning, which I didn't love. Like, her best friend kept putting pressure on her in these weird situations to be romantic with the lead, and it just felt like weird. Like, I didn't love that, but like, once they were doing things and like learning about each other on their own, you like really felt for them, you know? I gave this book 4 stars, and I would recommend it. The next book I read was Famine, which is the 3rd book in the 4 Horsemen's series. I've talked about this series in the past. I can link those videos up above if you want to hear my reviews on the other 2 books previously to this one. But in this book, this woman named Anna is paired up with Famine for the romance. She met him in the past and was spared, like he didn't kill her. You'll find out why, I don't want to spoil too much. And then he kind of forgets who she is and things happen and she tries to get revenge on him. And it's their interaction and Famine trying to end the world because his brothers before him failed, and him falling in love with Anna and seeing if their love is more important than his mission to end all of humanity. It was cool. Anna's a pretty badass character. You know, she lives in this harsh world now because, you know, the horsemen have been around for like 10, 15 plus years at this point. She's like forced into prostitution pretty much, which is sad, but like she's trying to survive. So there's kind of this dark history for her, and there's lots of murder and chaos because it's the Four Horsemen. But it's still a fun time, a fun romance, and I would also recommend it. I gave this book 4 stars as well. Then I read my first Mariana Zapata book. So she's a very popular sports romance writer, very well known for her extremely slow burn romances. So this was my first one, so I knew it was slow burn, but didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I say it is extremely slow, this particular book. If I haven't mentioned, it's The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. It's between a woman named Vanessa and a football lineman named Aiden. She's pretty much his personal assistant, I guess. She has aspirations of being like a graphic designer and all this stuff, running her own small business. So once she has enough money saved up, she quits working for him and he begs her to come back. He's also Canadian and he doesn't want to leave the US, but he's kind of tied to his football contract. So if he wants to switch teams, it's like complicated for immigration reasons or something. So he asks her to marry him in a certain amount of time, like this contract kind of that they build up secretly so he can stay and he'll like support her and like she can pay off all this student debt she has. He would pay that off for her and she can focus on her dream of being like a graphic designer. This was, like I said, so slow burn. It like barely gave you crumbs of romance. And like some of the things that would happen, like if you like kissed her in public and stuff, it was like so out of the blue. Like I don't know, I was like confused. I'm like, is this for show, you know? But then it like blew up on fire at the end. Like their passion for each other was really amazing, and he was so kind to her, and I don't want to spoil too much. This was a fun time, but very slow burn. Make sure you have that expectation going in for sure. And this one isn't super heavy on the sports topic because our main character isn't an athlete, so we don't see a lot of football talk, just that he's involved in the NFL. Though, random pet peeve, for whatever reason, Mariana Zapata will like switch out famous names. Like she wouldn't call it the NFL, she'd call it something else. And she won't call it Instagram, she'll call it Picturegram, but she'll still call it Facebook. Like I don't know why she does that, but I kind of find that annoying. Just an FYI. I ended up giving this book 3 stars because I just want more romance in the book, you know? I would say like 90%, it was barely any romance, and then the end, it was like on fire. And then I read Death, which is the 4th book in the Four Horsemen's series. Death is the 4th book, right? And I was a little worried that it was gonna kind of follow the same pattern, romance, plot-wise, as the previous 3. They all kind of tend to have this same similar cadence, even though the plots differ. But this one was completely different. So this is between Death, aka Thanatos, and our female lead named Lazarus. The thing with Lazarus now is that she cannot die. So she's born like well into the apocalypse. She's never experienced like technology because as soon as the Four Horsemen first showed up, like the normal world as we know it like went to shit. So there was no like regular electricity, like guns don't work, things like that. So she's never been around for that. And Death had traveled through her city when she was a baby and everyone was instantly killed, except for her. She survived and she was saved by a woman who was actually coming back to try to find her husband, who she knew was traveling to that city that got wiped out. So that woman took her in, she grew up with her, and then 20 plus years later, Death shows up to her new home with her new family and demolishes it. So she makes it her mission to kill Death, and it's their romance story in this twisted reality. And it was so good. It didn't follow that same pattern as the other 3 books. It was very much true enemies to lovers. They literally killed each other multiple times. it was just awesome seeing like Death fall in love with her and experience like what it means to be human and experience all the emotions and just like volatility of being a human. And the other horsemen tried to convince Lazarus to make him fall in love with her, to stop him from ending the world, because that's what stopped them from ending the world when they found their partners. And it's that adventure, and it's really, really good. Also, Death is like extra fine because he's got like, not tattoos on his face necessarily, but he's got tattoos, like these glowing tattoos over his entire body, and he has these epic giant wings. It was pretty dope. So yeah, and like what a cool power to like not be able to die. It was really good. Highly recommend. I gave this book 4 stars, and the steam in this one was probably the best steam. I will say I kind of skimmed like the final battles and stuff at the end. Like I was like, okay, like I know what's gonna happen. It's a romance, so it kind of has to end happily. So I just kind of was like, all right, let's get through this final battle, you know? But besides that, really enjoyed my time. Steam was super, super good, and would recommend for sure. And then I kind of got back into my Ice Planet Barbarian series binging process, whatever. I read Ice Planet Holiday. It was mostly about like the women of the caves creating their own holiday to have camaraderie, just have something to look forward to because the aliens don't have holidays. And then there's a side, tiny, tiny small romance in this one with a woman named Claire. When she first landed on the planet, she paired up with this guy, this alien guy, Beck, for protection, even though they didn't resonate. If you haven't read this series, resonate is pretty much how these aliens find their mates. So it's like they have this like parasite inside of them, and when it starts to resonate / sing to the parasite in the other person, they're like mated, you know? So it makes it really official. Like they're married, like they can't resist each other. And it's cute. But she didn't resonate to this guy, but she felt like since all the other girls were most of the girls were pairing up, it was safer for her to be with someone. But she's like over him, he's overbearing, he's definitely not the guy for her. So she tries to stand up for herself and leave him, and this other alien offers to protect her, and it's their romance. It's a very, very, very small part of this book, but it was still cute. I gave 4 stars. I'm trying to be more generous. Like this isn't the best work of fiction, but for what I expect out of this series, which is just a good time, I gave it 4 stars. Then I read It Happened One Autumn by Lisa Kleypas, which is the second book in the Wallflowers series. So this one is between Lillian and Marcus. So Lillian and Marcus already know each other from the first book. Marcus does not have a good opinion of Lillian. She's a very like outgoing, brash American girl. And he thinks she doesn't have very good manners and she's crazy, but he just can't resist her. He doesn't want to like her, but there's just something that like draws him to her because she's so different from him, and it's their romance. This was more fun. I think it explored their relationship more than the first book in the series. It wasn't as rushed, though Lillian was a little bit annoyingly dense. She's really into perfumes and stuff, so she made this like customized perfume for herself, and the first time Marcus like shows interest in her, he notices the scent and she thinks it's like a love potion, like, oh, he only is acting like attracted to me because of this scent, which was annoying. Like it's like, come on, he likes you, like don't be stupid. I don't know if he's a dude, but he's a very eligible aristocrat. He comes from a very prestigious bloodline. His mother despises Lillian. She's like, she has no title, she's not classy, like you cannot pick her to be your wife. And he feels that way in the beginning too, but love is very powerful, and it was a cute journey with them. Let's just say at the end there was a little bit of a thriller-esque aspect that surprised me. Like nothing crazy, but like I was still shocked that somebody crossed this line and did this. So that was fun. All right, then the second to last book I read in November was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. So now this was my second book that I read by her. My expectations were much better going into this one. It felt more women's fiction with like a hint of romance to like keep you trudging along in the stories, to still keep you engaged and like interested to see how it would end. So this story was about Aurora and a man named Rhodes. So Aurora has like a history in music. She's like a songwriter. She doesn't like sing her own songs. She's not like the name on the album. She's the person that comes up with the lyrics, and her ex-boyfriend was like a music star or whatever, but she had a major change in her life and she decided to leave all that behind and move to somewhere out in the mountains to start her life over, move back to where she grew up with her mother. Her mother was really into hiking and stuff, and when she was a teenager, when she used to live in this town she goes back to, and one day her mom went for a hike by herself and she never came back, and that really traumatized her mother just disappearing. So she wants to come back to this town, do the hikes that her mother loved, reconnect with that side of her, and doing so, she rents out a garage apartment owned by this man named Rhodes. His last name's Rhodes. But Rhodes doesn't know she rented it out because his young teenage son did it behind his back. And it's the romance between Aurora and Rhodes, about Aurora finding herself again. And it was really, really sweet. But yeah, I would say it's maybe 80% women's fiction and then like 20% with their romance. Their romance was really, really sweet. Rhodes does not like her in the beginning. He thinks she's a bit annoying, but as he learns more about her, as he sees how she interacts with his son, who really loves music and has dreams of being like a singer and a guitarist and all this stuff, and she has so much knowledge about that, he begins to trust her and they fall in love. And it was actually really, really sweet, and I enjoyed the women's fiction aspect of it. Like, I really enjoyed seeing her toughen up and go on these hikes and become more independent and finding herself and all this. I enjoyed it, I really did, even though the romance was smaller than typical. But sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a cleanse from like smutty stuff, you know? Like, give me a little bit, like don't give me nothing. I don't want like a closed door romance, like that's not for me. No fade to black, like I'm not interested in that. This for me is like still enjoyable break in between the overly smutty stuff. I gave this book 4 stars, and I would also recommend this book. So the last book I read in November was Barbarian Prize. This is the 6th book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series by Ruby Dixon. So this was sci-fi romance smut. This story was about Tiffany, and I forget what the alien guy's name was. I think it was maybe like Saluk or something. I really don't remember. And I was so excited for this one because we finally have some diversity. This is our first non-white heroine. She's black. She is one of the last human women to be mated. There's only 2 unmated women left. So she's very popular with the alien guys. They're trying to court her because they really want to mate, but nobody has resonated to her. She has a lot of trauma from her experience being kidnapped from the original, like orange, little green aliens that started off this series. She was the R word, sexually assaulted, and she is obviously and rightfully so traumatized from that. I don't know if this book is like necessarily like the best representation of like getting over that, but it was still an interesting read. I really, really liked Tiffany. She was very resourceful. She had a lot of skills, wanting to improve the lives of everyone in the caves, wanting to see if they could find plants that they could grow, besides just eating like raw meat all the time. And the alien guy, that's our hero in this book, he knew she had some fears, so we wanted to approach her carefully, build trust with her, and it was really, really sweet, and it was a good time. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Also, let me just add that the covers for these books are so bad. The woman on this cover does not look black to me. She looks white. I mean, her hair is straight, and the aliens never look like how the aliens are supposed to look in the book. They just look like blue human men on the covers when they don't look like that in the books. So I find that a little frustrating, though I have seen the recover of the first book, which is more of a cartoony drawn image, which I much prefer than like the real people because you can make it more accurate. So yeah, I found it frustrating that Tiffany isn't properly represented on the cover because it is mentioned that she has curly hair, and the woman on the cover does not. So I hope they fix that. So those are all the books I read in November. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!